My girlfriend told me, "I'm way too beautiful for you," at a yacht club party, and 6 weeks later she's crying to mutual friends about how I found someone who makes her look average. I never thought I'd be the type of guy to walk away from someone like Savannah, but sometimes life teaches you lessons in the most unexpected ways. I'm Alex, 28, and I work as a marine biologist at the Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Science in Miami. I spend my days studying coral reef ecosystems and publishing research papers that maybe 12 people in the world actually read, but I love what I do. I'm not the kind of guy who turns heads at South Beach clubs or drives a Lamborghini to impress Instagram influencers. I drive a reliable Honda Civic, live in a modest apartment near the university, and my idea of excitement is discovering a new species of reef fish or completing a challenging deep-water dive. I keep myself in decent shape through swimming and diving, but I'm more comfortable in a wetsuit than a designer suit. 3 years ago, I met Savannah at a charity auction for ocean conservation at the exclusive Coral Reef Yacht Club. She was 26, worked in luxury real estate specializing in waterfront properties for international clients, and honestly looked like she'd stepped off the cover of a fashion magazine. Long blonde hair that always seemed to catch the light perfectly, a smile that could stop traffic, and this polished elegance that made every other woman in the room seem ordinary by comparison. I was there representing the Institute, giving a brief presentation about our reef restoration work to potential donors who wrote six-figure checks like I write grocery lists. Savannah approached me after my talk, genuinely interested in the research or at least pretending to be. "I never realized how complex marine ecosystems are," she said, her green eyes focused entirely on me. "Would you be willing to show me some of your work sometime?" I was completely stunned that someone like her was even talking to me, let alone asking to see more. Most women at these events barely acknowledged my existence once they learned I was the science guy, not the guy writing the donation checks. But Savannah seemed different, asking thoughtful questions about coral bleaching and fish population dynamics. When she gave me her number and suggested dinner, I honestly thought someone was playing an elaborate prank on me. Our first date was at this upscale seafood restaurant in Coconut Grove that probably cost more than I usually spend on food in a month. Savannah insisted on ordering wine that cost more per bottle than my monthly parking pass, but she seemed genuinely fascinated when I explained how the grouper on her plate fit into the marine food chain. "You're so passionate about your work," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "Most guys I meet just talk about money or status symbols. You actually care about making the world better." The early months felt like I'd won some impossible lottery. Savannah dragged me to gallery openings in Wynwood where pretentious artists sold painted canvases for more than my annual car insurance. She brought me to rooftop parties in Brickell where tech entrepreneurs and real estate moguls discussed million-dollar deals over craft cocktails. I felt completely out of place among these people who measured success in Rolex watches and vacation homes, but Savannah seemed proud to have me there. "This is Alex," she'd introduce me with genuine enthusiasm. "He's a marine biologist doing incredible work to save coral reefs. He's published in Nature and Science journals." She made my research sound glamorous and important, and for the first time in my life, I felt like maybe I was more interesting than I'd given myself credit for. The first red flag appeared about 6 months in, though I was too infatuated to recognize it then. Savannah started making subtle suggestions about my appearance, beginning with my wardrobe. "You know, babe, you'd look incredible in some designer clothes," she said one evening while we were getting ready for another one of her work events. "I saw this amazing suit at Bal Harbour that would be perfect for you." When I mentioned that a $2,000 suit seemed excessive for a marine biologist's salary, she laughed it off. "Consider it an investment in your image. First impressions matter so much in my world." Her world. That phrase started appearing more frequently in our conversations, always accompanied by gentle pressure to upgrade various aspects of my life. She convinced me to join her private beach club in Key Biscayne, which cost more per month than my student loan payments. "You'll love having access to the private beach," she insisted. "Plus, you'll meet some fascinating people who could really help your career." The membership fee made me wince, but I wanted to make her happy, and she seemed so excited about sharing this part of her life with me. Then came the car situation. My Honda Civic, which had reliably transported me through graduate school and 3 years of professional life, suddenly became a source of embarrassment. "I love that you're practical," Savannah said after we'd valet parked at yet another upscale restaurant, "but people in my industry notice things like cars. It's just how this world works." Within a month, I traded my paid-off Honda for a leased BMW that consumed nearly 20% of my monthly income. I told myself it was temporary, just until I figured out how to navigate her social circle more effectively. The comments about my punching above my weight class started as jokes between us, usually when we were getting ready to go out. "I can't believe someone as gorgeous as you is with a science nerd like me," I'd say, fishing for reassurance. Instead of contradicting me, Savannah would smile and say things like, "Well, you're lucky I find intelligence sexy," or "Good thing you're so sweet, because you're definitely punching above your weight here." At first, I thought she was just playing along with my self-deprecating humor, but gradually I realized she actually agreed with the assessment. Her friends began treating me like an interesting pet she'd adopted from the shelter. "Savannah, where did you find this one?" her friend Brittany asked at a pool party, looking me up and down like I was an exotic species. "He's so different from your usual type." Her usual type, apparently, had been finance guys, real estate developers, and the occasional professional athlete. Men who drove Ferraris and owned multiple properties, who discussed stock portfolios over breakfast and planned vacations to places I couldn't pronounce. My diving buddy Marcus started expressing concern about how Savannah treated me in public. "Dude, she literally introduced you as her cute little scientist at that barbecue last weekend," he pointed out after we'd finished a morning dive at Pennicamp State Park. "That's not how someone talks about their boyfriend. That's how someone talks about their amusing hobby." I defended her, insisting that she was just proud of my work in her own way. But Marcus's words stuck with me, especially when I started noticing how Savannah's behavior changed around her more successful friends. Dr. Patricia Wells, my colleague at the Institute, was more direct. "Alex, I've watched you present research to rooms full of distinguished scientists without breaking a sweat," she said during one of our lab sessions. "But every time you talk about this woman, you sound like you're apologizing for existing. That's not healthy." The breaking point in this phase came when Savannah got promoted to handle ultra-luxury properties exclusively, working with clients who bought $20 million penthouses like I bought lunch. Suddenly, she was mingling with tech moguls who'd sold companies for hundreds of millions, professional athletes with endorsement deals worth more than small countries' GDP, and entertainment industry figures whose names I recognized from movie credits. "You wouldn't understand the pressure I'm under now," she explained when I asked why she'd started excluding me from her work events. "These clients expect a certain level of sophistication. It's nothing personal, but the real estate world at this level is incredibly high stakes." I noticed she'd also stopped posting couple photos on her meticulously curated Instagram account, which had gained thousands of followers as her client list became more prestigious. When I mentioned it, she shrugged. "My social media is basically marketing now. I have to maintain a specific image for my brand." The humiliation that ended everything happened at the annual Coral Reef Yacht Club Regatta afterparty, an event that brought together Miami's wealthiest boat owners and their carefully selected guests. Savannah had been excited about this particular party for weeks because several of her ultra-high-net-worth clients would be attending, including a tech entrepreneur named Blake Castellanos who'd recently sold his company for $400 million. I'd worn my most expensive suit, the one Savannah had convinced me to buy, and tried to blend in among people who casually discussed their third homes in the Hamptons while sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than my monthly groceries. The yacht club's main deck was decorated with string lights and tropical flowers, overlooking Biscayne Bay where massive yachts worth more than most people's houses bobbed gently in the evening breeze. I was standing near the bar, nursing a beer and making polite conversation with a retired pharmaceutical executive about fishing, when I overheard a group of Savannah's socialite friends talking nearby. "I still can't believe Savannah is still with that marine biologist," said Victoria, a real estate heiress whose family owned half of South Beach. "I mean, he seems sweet, but she's literally slumming it. Someone that gorgeous could have any man in Miami." Her friend Amanda, whose husband owned a chain of luxury hotels, nodded in agreement. Blake Castellanos was asking about her earlier. Can you imagine if she played her cards right? She could be living on Star Island instead of dating someone who studies fish for a living. My face burned with embarrassment, but I stayed frozen in place, unable to move away from their conversation. These were women Savannah considered friends, people she'd introduced me to dozens of times. To them, I was just an amusing phase she'd eventually outgrow. The worst part came when Savannah herself joined the group, slightly intoxicated from the premium cocktails she'd been enjoying all evening. Blake appeared beside her, tall and confident in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, placing his hand casually on her lower back in a way that made my stomach clench. "Savannah, you look absolutely stunning tonight," he said, his voice carrying that particular confidence that comes with unlimited money. "I was just telling these ladies that a woman as beautiful as you is completely wasted on someone who can't appreciate luxury the way you deserve." Instead of defending our relationship or stepping away from his touch, Savannah laughed, a sound that cut through me like broken glass. "Oh God, Blake, you're terrible," she said, but her tone was flirtatious rather than offended. "Though honestly, everyone says I'm way too beautiful for Alex. Even my mother asks why I'm settling." The group erupted in laughter, and I watched as the woman I'd been planning to propose to casually humiliated me in front of Miami's social elite. She continued, emboldened by their reaction and Blake's obvious interest. "I mean, Alex is sweet and all, but he drives a leased BMW and thinks a fancy dinner is anywhere that serves wine by the glass instead of the bottle. Meanwhile, Blake here just bought that incredible penthouse in Sunny Isles and his yacht is literally parked right outside." Blake smiled and pulled her slightly closer. "Intelligence is attractive, but a woman like you deserves to be properly worshipped. You shouldn't have to settle for someone who makes you feel grateful for attention." That was the moment something inside me snapped, not with anger but with absolute clarity. I walked directly over to their group, and the conversation died instantly when they realized I'd been listening. Savannah's face went pale, her eyes wide with panic as she finally understood what she'd just done. "You're absolutely right," I said calmly, looking directly at Blake before turning to Savannah. "You are way too beautiful for me. You deserve someone who can match your beauty and social status, someone who understands luxury the way you do." The entire group stared at me in stunned silence, clearly expecting tears or anger or some kind of dramatic scene. Instead, I smiled politely and continued. "I think we should end this relationship tonight, Savannah. You shouldn't have to settle for someone who makes you feel like you're slumming it." Savannah's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, unable to form words as the reality of what was happening hit her. "Alex, wait, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted gently. "And that's okay. You know what you want, and it's not me. Blake, she's all yours. I hope you two are very happy together." I turned to walk away, but paused and looked back at the group of shocked faces. "For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who makes you feel as beautiful on the inside as you are on the outside. You deserve that kind of love." The walk from the yacht club deck to the parking lot felt like it took forever, with whispers and stares following my exit. I could hear Savannah calling my name behind me, her voice getting more desperate with each step I took, but I didn't turn around. As I reached my car, I realized that for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe properly. The weeks following the yacht club incident brought an unexpected sense of relief that surprised me more than the heartbreak I'd been anticipating. Instead of wallowing in self-pity or desperately trying to win Savannah back, I threw myself into my marine research with a passion I hadn't felt in years. Without the constant pressure to attend social events and maintain an expensive lifestyle I couldn't afford, I found myself working late in the lab, diving deeper into my coral reef restoration project that had been gathering dust while I played dress-up in Savannah's world. The breakthrough came 6 weeks after our breakup, when my research team successfully developed a new coral cultivation technique that increased survival rates by 40% in laboratory conditions. The data was remarkable, showing promise for large-scale reef restoration efforts that could help combat the devastating effects of climate change on marine ecosystems. When I submitted our findings to the Journal of Marine Biology, I felt the same excitement I'd experienced as a graduate student making my first significant discovery. Dr. Patricia Wells was the first to congratulate me when the journal accepted our paper for publication. "Alex, this could change how we approach reef conservation globally," she said, reviewing our data with obvious excitement. "Have you considered presenting this at the International Marine Conservation Conference in San Diego next month?" The recognition felt incredible, but more importantly, it reminded me why I'd chosen this career path in the first place. I wasn't just studying fish for a living, as Victoria had so dismissively put it. I was contributing to efforts that could help preserve ocean ecosystems for future generations. However, the emotional toll of the relationship and its ending made me realize I needed professional help to understand why I'd accepted being treated so poorly for so long. I started seeing Dr. Rebecca Torres, a therapist who specialized in relationship dynamics and self-worth issues. Her office was a calm space overlooking Biscayne Bay, and during our sessions, she helped me recognize patterns in my behavior that I'd never acknowledged. "You've been performing gratitude instead of expecting mutual respect," she explained during one of our early sessions. "When someone makes you feel lucky to be with them, rather than grateful to share your life together, that's not love. That's conditional acceptance based on an imbalanced power dynamic." Dr. Torres helped me understand that healthy relationships involved equal admiration, not one person feeling perpetually grateful for the other's attention. I began to see how I'd systematically diminished myself, changing my appearance, spending habits, and social circle to become someone worthy of Savannah's love, rather than finding someone who appreciated my authentic self. The therapy sessions also revealed how my childhood had shaped these patterns. Growing up as the quiet, academic kid who preferred books to sports, I'd learned early that I needed to prove my worth through achievement rather than expecting to be valued for who I was naturally. With Dr. Torres's guidance, I started reconnecting with activities and friendships I'd neglected during my relationship with Savannah. I resumed leading educational diving expeditions for marine biology students, something I'd stopped doing because Savannah found my weekend commitments inconvenient. Working with eager graduate students who genuinely appreciated my expertise reminded me how fulfilling teaching could be. These young scientists asked thoughtful questions about coral ecosystems and listened intently when I explained complex marine interactions. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and I remembered why I'd fallen in love with marine biology in the first place. Marcus, my diving buddy, noticed the change immediately. "Dude, you seem like yourself again," he said after we'd completed a particularly challenging deepwater dive at Molasses Reef. "You're not constantly checking your phone or worrying about getting back for some fancy dinner. It's like you remembered that you actually enjoy your life." He was right. For the first time in years, I was living according to my own values and interests rather than trying to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. 3 months after the yacht club incident, I met Grace during a sea turtle conservation project on Key Largo that would fundamentally change my understanding of what authentic connection could feel like. The project involved monitoring nesting sites and protecting hatchlings during their critical first journey to the ocean, work that required early morning beach patrols and late-night data collection sessions. Grace was there as a freelance marine wildlife photographer, documenting the conservation efforts for National Geographic's online platform. I first noticed her during a pre-dawn briefing, sitting quietly in practical dive gear while other volunteers complained about the early hour and primitive camping conditions. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore no makeup, but there was something genuinely beautiful about her natural appearance and the way she listened intently to our team leader's instructions about turtle behavior. When I explained the nesting cycle timeline and the various threats facing sea turtle populations, Grace asked thoughtful questions that demonstrated real understanding of marine ecology. "How do artificial light sources affect hatchling navigation?" she asked, pulling out a weathered notebook to record my answer. "And what's the most effective way to photograph the nesting process without disturbing the mothers?" Her questions weren't performative or designed to impress anyone. She genuinely wanted to understand the science behind our conservation work, and her enthusiasm reminded me why I'd chosen marine biology in the first place. Over the next few days, Grace and I found ourselves working closely together, with her photographing various stages of the research process while I collected behavioral data and tissue samples. Unlike Savannah, who had always seemed bored when I discussed my work in detail, Grace was fascinated by every aspect of marine life. The way these hatchlings instinctively know to follow the moon's reflection on the water is incredible, she said one evening as we watched dozens of baby turtles make their way toward the ocean. It's like they're born with this perfect navigation system that's been working for millions of years. We spent hours talking about ocean conservation, climate change impacts on marine ecosystems, and the intersection between scientific research and environmental photography. Grace had traveled extensively for her work, documenting everything from coral reef restoration projects in the Philippines to whale migration patterns in Alaska. Her stories were captivating, but what impressed me most was her genuine passion for marine life and her understanding of the complex challenges facing ocean ecosystems. I love that my photography can help people connect emotionally with conservation issues, she explained while editing photos on her laptop. Most people will never see a sea turtle nest in person, but if my images can make them care about protecting these species, then I'm contributing something meaningful. The contrast with Savannah was stark and enlightening. Where Savannah had viewed my career as something quaint but ultimately limiting, Grace saw marine biology as vital work that deserved support and admiration. She asked detailed questions about my coral restoration research and genuinely celebrated when I told her about the recent journal publication. "Alex, that's incredible," she said, her excitement completely genuine. 40% increased survival rates could transform reef conservation efforts worldwide. You should be incredibly proud of this achievement. When Grace suggested we dive together at John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park during our day off, I discovered what it felt like to share my underwater world with someone who truly appreciated its beauty. She moved through the water with graceful efficiency, her camera capturing images of the coral formations I'd been studying for years. Watching her work underwater, completely absorbed in documenting the intricate relationships between fish species and reef structures, I realized I was falling for someone who enhanced my life rather than requiring me to diminish myself. Grace's approach to social media was refreshingly authentic compared to Savannah's carefully curated image management. She posted photos from our conservation work with detailed captions explaining the science behind turtle nesting behaviors and reef ecosystem dynamics. Her followers included marine biologists, conservation photographers, and environmental enthusiasts who engaged in meaningful discussions about ocean protection rather than commenting on designer outfits or luxury vacation destinations. "I want my platform to educate people," she explained when I complimented her thoughtful posts. Social media can be powerful for conservation awareness if you use it responsibly. When Grace invited me to meet her friends at a casual barbecue in Isla Mirada, I experienced something I'd never felt in Savannah's social circle: immediate acceptance and genuine interest in who I was as a person. Her friends were a diverse group of environmental professionals, artists, and educators who welcomed me warmly and asked engaging questions about marine research without any underlying judgment about my income level or social status. The universe has a twisted sense of humor, because 6 weeks after Grace and I had become officially exclusive, Savannah appeared at the Miami Beach Environmental Foundation's annual fundraiser where Grace was displaying her turtle conservation photography and I was presenting research findings to potential donors. I spotted Savannah immediately across the crowded ballroom at the Fontainebleau, her blonde hair perfectly styled and wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was with Blake Castellanos, the tech entrepreneur from the yacht club, but her eyes were scanning the room with obvious purpose until they locked onto mine. The shock on her face when she saw me was palpable, but what clearly devastated her was seeing Grace beside me, natural and radiant in a simple black dress, her arm linked through mine as we discussed coral restoration techniques with a group of fascinated marine science donors. "Oh my God, Alex," Savannah said, appearing beside us with Blake trailing behind, looking uncomfortable. "I didn't expect to see you here. You look..." She paused, studying my face with obvious confusion. "Really good. Really happy." Grace extended her hand with genuine warmth. "You must be Savannah. I'm Grace. Alex has told me so much about you." The polite smile never wavered, but I could see Grace assessing the situation with her photographer's eye for detail. Savannah's smile faltered as she took in Grace's natural beauty and the obvious connection between us. "So you're the rebound," she said with forced casualness, her tone carrying just enough edge to reveal her true feelings. How nice that Alex found someone to help him get over our relationship. Blake shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to be anywhere else, while Grace responded with composed confidence. Actually, Alex and I met through conservation work. We share a passion for marine life protection. Her voice remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. Savannah's composure began cracking. Alex, can I speak with you privately for a moment? There are some things I need to say. Before I could respond, she was already walking toward the terrace, expecting me to follow. Grace squeezed my hand gently. I'll be right here when you get back, she said, her support clear without being possessive. On the terrace overlooking the ocean, Savannah's mask dropped completely. Alex, I made a terrible mistake. I've been thinking about you constantly since that night at the yacht club. What I said was horrible and completely wrong. I waited, watching her struggle with words she'd probably rehearsed multiple times. Blake and I aren't working out. He's controlling and shallow, nothing like you. I realize now that you were everything I actually needed, but I was too stupid and superficial to appreciate what we had. Savannah, I said gently, you weren't wrong about us being incompatible. You just weren't wrong in the way you thought. Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared, Alex. Scared of being with someone who made me want to be a better person instead of just buying better things. You challenged me in ways I wasn't ready for. But you're ready now? I asked, genuinely curious about her answer. Yes, completely. I've learned so much about myself these past few months. I want to support your career, be proud of your achievements, stop caring about status symbols and social climbing. It sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced this speech in front of a mirror. Savannah, even if that's true, I'm with Grace now. I'm happy in a way I never was with you, even during our best times. Her face crumpled. But we have history. 3 years together. That has to mean something more than whatever you have with her. It does mean something. It taught me what I don't want in a relationship and helped me recognize what I do want when I found it. The conversation was interrupted when Blake appeared on the terrace, looking annoyed. Savannah, are you coming back to the party, or are you going to spend the entire evening talking to your ex? The dismissive way he spoke to her was telling, and I could see Savannah realize that she'd traded one problematic relationship for another. Back inside, the evening continued smoothly. Grace had been chatting with Dr. Patricia Wells about underwater photography techniques, and they'd discovered a shared interest in documenting coral restoration progress over time. Watching Grace integrate seamlessly into my professional world, asking intelligent questions and contributing meaningful insights, I felt grateful for how naturally she fit into every aspect of my life. The final confrontation came when Savannah cornered us near the silent auction tables. Grace, right? She said, her tone deceptively sweet. I hope you realize that Alex is just using you to make me jealous. He's been in love with me for 3 years, and that doesn't just disappear because he found some nature girl to play with. Grace's response was perfect in its simplicity. If that's what you need to believe to feel better about your choices, that's fine with me. But Alex and I are very happy together. Savannah's desperation became obvious. You don't know him like I do. He needs someone sophisticated, someone who can elevate his social status and help his career. What can you offer him that I couldn't? Respect, Grace said quietly, the single word landing like a sledgehammer. The truth of it hung in the air, and even Savannah couldn't argue with such fundamental accuracy. 2 weeks after the environmental fundraiser, I received one final email from Savannah that perfectly captured everything wrong with how she'd approached our relationship and her attempts to win me back. Alex, it began, I've been thinking about everything, and I realize now that you were actually too good for me, not the other way around. I was shallow and materialistic, and I lost the best man I've ever known because I couldn't see past surface-level nonsense. But I still don't understand why you can't forgive me and give us another chance. We could be amazing together now that I know better. Even in her apology, she was missing the fundamental point about respect and partnership that had destroyed us in the first place. Grace and I have been together for 8 months now, And everything about our relationship feels natural and sustainable in ways my time with Savannah never did. She's integrated seamlessly into my life, becoming friends with Marcus and Dr. Patricia Wells, charming my parents during their visit to Miami, and even collaborating with my research team on a documentary about coral restoration efforts that will help secure additional funding for our projects. My family immediately loved her genuine warmth and intelligence, with my mother commenting privately that she'd never seen me so relaxed and confident in a relationship. Last month, we encountered Savannah one final time at the marina where Grace and I were preparing for a research dive at Molasses Reef. She was there with another wealthy boyfriend, some real estate developer who fit her usual type perfectly, but she looked hollow despite being surrounded by exactly the kind of luxury lifestyle she'd always claimed to want. From across the dock, I watched her stare at Grace and me as we loaded dive equipment onto our boat, laughing about something completely ordinary while we worked together with the easy synchronization that comes from genuine partnership. Even with her new boyfriend's arm around her waist and a designer bag that probably cost more than my monthly salary hanging from her shoulder, Savannah looked like someone who'd finally realized what she'd thrown away but was too proud to admit the full extent of her mistake. Grace noticed her watching us and simply waved politely before turning back to our conversation about the documentary project, completely unbothered by the scrutiny. That moment perfectly captured the difference between them: Grace's secure confidence versus Savannah's desperate need for validation and control.